When we talk about Three-Eye Atlas, the first thing I want to emphasize is that science is not about declaring answers just because they are comfortable. Science is about following the evidence wherever it leads, even if the evidence makes us uncomfortable. Over the last several days, especially within the last 24 hours, there has been a renewed effort by some mainstream outlets to call Three-Eye Atlas a completely normal comet. Nothing special, nothing unusual, nothing that merits further debate. One of the most recent examples is the Forbes article published today, which states rather confidently that Three-Eye Atlas is logically a wholly natural comet. I have no problem with the idea of it being natural. That is the starting assumption in astronomy. But my issue arises when we take that assumption and elevate it to a conclusion without addressing the anomalies that remain unresolved. Now, the Forbes argument essentially goes like this. Interstellar comets should exist. They should occasionally pass through our solar system, and Three-Eye Atlas shows cometary activities such as jets, dust release, and a tail. Therefore, the argument continues, any unusual behavior can still be explained by natural physics if we are patient enough and avoid sensational speculation. That sounds neat, that sounds orderly, but unfortunately, it doesn't fit the totality of the data. When I look at Three-Eye Atlas, I do not see a tidy explanation. I see a series of phenomena that deserve investigation, not dismissal. In my interviews over the last weeks, I've said repeatedly, let's not pretend we have all the answers when there are still questions sitting on the table. One of those questions involves what many observers are calling the Sunward jet. Typically, when comets emit gas, the resulting force pushes material away from the sun. This is because radiation pressure and solar wind exert outward momentum. But Three-Eye Atlas has been photographed multiple times with a jet facing toward the sun. That is counterintuitive. You can imagine if you spray water from a hose, the spray goes in the direction you point it. It doesn't spontaneously reverse direction. So what mechanism leads to outgassing that appears to defy the usual solar-driven dynamics? Is it geometry? Is it rotation? Is it internal thermal pressure? Those are possibilities. But the point is, none of them have been demonstrated yet. The natural comet explanation is not enough by itself. Science thrives on uncertainty. It is not a weakness. It is an invitation to learn more. When people say we must not jump to aliens, I agree with that. But what I disagree with is the attitude of not even considering anything other than a conventional comet. That mentality shuts the door prematurely. If 1,000 years ago people had insisted that all lights in the sky were fixed points, we would never have discovered stellar motion. If 100 years ago scientists insisted that galaxies were simply nebulae within the Milky Way, we would never have discovered the expanding universe. Progress comes from questioning assumptions. Another issue I've raised is transparency. NASA reportedly possesses high-resolution images of Three-Eye Atlas, but they have not yet been released. These images were taken weeks ago. Given the public interest and the scientific importance, I cannot see a good reason why they should be delayed. When I asked around, I was told through reliable channels that the images might be released soon. But the key point is not the timeline. It is the reluctance. If this object is truly normal, then the fastest way to end speculation is simple. Release the data. Let scientists around the world analyze the high-resolution imagery. Let independent groups critique the findings. Let the public see the raw reality, not filtered interpretations. Transparency is the clearest path to trust. One more thing deserves attention. The size of Three-Eye Atlas is significantly larger than both Oumuamua and Borisov. It is roughly 5 kilometers across. That size implies that any outgassing strong enough to produce the observed acceleration and tail behavior should generate far more dust than we currently observe. This discrepancy is not trivial. It reminds us of the Oumuamua dust paradox, where an object accelerated without shedding dust. People tried to explain that using exotic hydrogen ice or nitrogen ice models, but those models later turned out to be physically implausible because such materials would evaporate on the journey. We should avoid repeating that mistake. When we see an inconsistency, we should not force nature to conform to our expectations. We should ask new questions. Now, let me take a step back and say this. I am perfectly open to the possibility that every anomaly may have a natural explanation. Maybe the Sunward jet is due to a deep subsurface cavity oriented in a particular way. Maybe the anti-tail structure is a rare geometric alignment. Maybe the color shifts are chemical stratification. Maybe the acceleration is produced by uneven sublimation. All of these could be true. But here's the key. None of these explanations have been demonstrated yet. They are hypotheses. They are not conclusions. They are ideas, not evidence, and science requires evidence. The debate over 3I Atlas highlights something larger about our scientific culture. There is a tendency to default to conservative explanations because they feel safer, but safety is not the goal of science. Truth is the goal, and truth remains unknown until we confront the data honestly, especially when the data does not match the model. In the case of 3I Atlas, what troubles me is not the natural comet hypothesis. What troubles me is the eagerness to declare that nothing unusual exists, even when the anomalous behavior is right there in front of us, documented in photographs, light curves, and observational logs. In my view, the responsible scientific attitude is humility. The object is interstellar. It comes from outside our solar system. It is behaving in certain ways that are not typical of known comets. That combination alone justifies careful study. We should not be afraid of unfamiliar behavior. After all, the first time we observed pulsars, people speculated about artificial signals because the regularity was so surprising. Eventually, we learned they were natural, but the speculation did not harm science. It motivated investigation. The danger is not in asking bold questions. The danger is in refusing to ask them. Let me conclude by saying this directly. I am not asserting that 3I Atlas is a spacecraft or a probe or anything artificial. What I am asserting firmly is that we have unexplained data, and the unexplained data should drive scientific curiosity, not dismissal. If we approach 3I Atlas with an open mind and follow the evidence systematically, we will learn what it truly is. Perhaps we will discover a new class of interstellar comet. Perhaps we will uncover physics that we did not anticipate. And yes, perhaps we will rule out anything artificial with solid evidence. But we should let the universe speak for itself rather than forcing it into preconceived categories. So to the public, I would say, engage with the evidence. Look at the images, look at the jets, look at the color transitions, look at the acceleration curves, and ask the questions that scientists should be asking. And to the scientific community, I would say do not shy away from anomalies simply because they attract public attention. An anomaly is a gift. It is nature's way of telling us that something new is waiting to be discovered. Instead of bearing that gift, let us open it. Ultimately, whether the 3I Atlas turns out to be a perfectly natural interstellar comet or something that rewrites our textbooks, the most important thing is the process: inquiry, curiosity, open debate, and transparent data. That is how we make progress. That is how we honor the scientific method. And that is how we make sure we remain students of the universe, not its gatekeepers.